Hi, and welcome back to another edition of Insurance Answers. I'm Billy.bray, the proud author of the book on insurance, How to Save Money and Minimize Risk. Today what we're going to be talking about is the devil being in the details. And many of you have heard that saying, but what I'm referring to is the insurance policies that you may have. A lot of people say, hey, I've got insurance and my broker's great and nothing's really changed and everything's fine. Well, when you look at your insurance policies, the big thick stack of insurance policies, the reason that they're so thick is because there's a lot of detail in there. And the reason there's a lot of detail in there is because years ago, the insurance companies, if they didn't explicitly state something in the policy, then the court would find them at fault or guilty, meaning that they had to pay more claims. So the insurance policies became more litigious, more lawyers got involved writing them and involved with the verbiage and the wording of those. And so they ended up with these big, thick insurance policies with lots of endorsements and exclusions and all different types of verbiage that can be confusing to a CFO or a CEO or just a normal layman. They can be confusing to insurance brokers at sometimes. We have to call the underwriter and say, hey, what did you mean when you had this coverage in the front of the policy, then you took it back in the exclusions? What does that mean? So it's very detailed, and the devil lies there within. So when I hear companies or people say, hey, I've got insurance, it's good, I'm happy with it, this, that, and the other, I would question, do you really know what you have? That's the big question of the day. Do you really know what you have? Okay, you can buy a general liability policy. That's easy. You can buy workers' comp. You can buy an umbrella. Very straightforward. What is in that policy is my question to you. And do you really know what you have? I'll give you an example. I was meeting with a prospective client yesterday that pays over $1 million in insurance premiums. Okay, they're substantial. It's a good company, high quality company, well respected here in my area. And they said, hey, we've got good insurance. We've had our broker for 30 years. We're not opposed to taking a second look at it, but we're happy with what we've got. And I dug a little bit deeper and asked some more questions, and come to find out that they've got a claim going on. It's a property management company. Okay, they manage almost 200 properties, townhouses, condos, over 10,000 doors. Okay, so I asked them about their claims, how those were going, and they said, well, we've got this current claim. It's a $7 million claim, and we only had $2 million of insurance coverage. Okay, well, you've got $5 million of insurance money that you need that you don't have. How are you managing that? And he went on to fumble through explaining that, and really didn't have a good answer for me. So essentially, you've got 100 homeowners that are splitting $2 million to rebuild their homes after Hurricane Harvey instead of $7 million, which was what was needed. So there's a $5 million deficit divided by 100 people. Everybody's coming out of pocket an extreme amount of money. So how could that be avoided? Well, when I asked them for their insurance policy, I don't want to show the name here, but when I asked them for their insurance policy, I was given this one-page piece of paper. That's scary. When I expected at least one 3-ring binder that was 3 inches thick, maybe more. And when I went on to ask him questions, I said, okay, so you had a 5% property insurance reduction last year. Felt pretty good, right? Okay, well, I would argue that the market that we're in currently, it's so soft that it should yield higher than a 5% reduction. I would also argue that that broker didn't negotiate with the carrier as firmly as they could have to be able to deliver a better result. That's what I like to do. Most brokers don't do that on a regular basis, at least. I looked at their umbrella policy. They have $10 million worth of umbrella coverage. They're literally paying 10 times more premium than what they should be. 10 times more. They feel good about the premiums because relatively it's not that much, but it could be a lot better. When I asked about the directors and officers, errors and omissions insurance, they felt good about it. I questioned the coverage limit. They had $300,000 in coverage, and they really don't need that much coverage because they're only dealing with a little bit of gross receipts or a little bit of money that they're handling at a time. I'm a big fan of having more insurance than less insurance if it's cost efficient, but that raised the question, why? When I go through these evaluations of analyzing insurance programs or single page documents or whatever the case may be, I raise the question, why? And do you know why? And a lot of the times I get the deer in the headlights look of, well, no, Billy, I really don't know why. I'm not sure, or you'd have to ask my broker. So that raises another question. I say, okay, so I only see a handful of policies here. Where are the rest of them? They didn't know. Well, do you have professional liability insurance? Well, yeah. Okay. Can you put your hands on it? No, my broker's got it. Do you have flood insurance? Well, yeah, but since Hurricane Harvey, you can't really buy it, and went on to have an explanation that didn't really make sense to me. And I said, well, can you explain that? And I said, look, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I knew he'd have a tough time explaining it, and he did. So what about errors and omissions insurance, which relates to your professional liability as a property management company? He said, well, we don't have that. I said, we should close the door. We closed the door and went on to have a conversation about different claims instances where he could potentially be in a claim situation where he omits or has an error in not placing insurance coverage for the homeowners associations that he ultimately is responsible for and has the fiduciary responsibility for, which can create large 6- and 7-figure claims if not handled appropriately. I said, well, look, we can solve this problem real easily. I'll do an evaluation over your full program. I'll come back. I'll tell you what you do have, what you don't have, what you could be looking at in terms of insurances that you need, what those cost, and it's your decision to buy them or not. I'm not an insurance salesperson. I'm a consultant. So what I'll do is tell you, here's what your risks are, here's what you're buying, here's what you're not. If you wanted to cover this risk up and transfer that risk to an insurance carrier instead of carry the risk yourself, here's how much it would cost. We run a cost-benefit analysis, you and I, and we make the decision as a team, really you, internally, with some advice from me and my team as to what you want to pay for and what you want to take on is your personal risk. So I said, it's real simple. All we need to do is get your insurance policies. He said, well, I don't have, he gave me this. I don't have my insurance policies. I said, okay, well, you've just got to request them from your broker. He says, well, I've tried. I said, okay, so they're on the way then, right? And he said what a lot of CFOs and a lot of CEOs and a lot of business owners say. They say, well, my insurance broker's got my policies. I don't need them, or I don't have them. How do you know what you really have if you don't have it in your possession? You're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in insurance, or millions of dollars in some cases in insurance. Even if you're a homeowner, you're paying a couple $1,000s a year for your insurance. But if you're a business, you've got hundreds of people relying on you to keep that business operable, and you're not on top of your insurance program, that is your fiduciary and really moral and ethical responsibility to be on top of that. So if I ask you, what's your deductible on your umbrella? Do you know? Is it $10,000? And I would ask why, if it is. Do you know what your coverage symbol on your auto insurance is? Is it a 1? Is it a 7? Do you know why you chose one between the other? Do you have physical damage coverage on vehicles that are older than 5 years? And if you do, is it because you have a lien on them or because you just really want that coverage? Or are you leaving that up to your insurance agent to determine for you? Did they review it last year? Did they review it 2 years ago to make sure that it's updated, modernized, and streamlined to fit you and your company's needs? If I ask you if your umbrella sits over your workers' compensation policy, would you know? All too often I find, hey, companies that have more than one broker, a lot of times that umbrella is not sitting over all the policies. I've obtained a lot of clients where I just come in and say, hey, let's put the umbrella over the workers' comp, we'll consolidate everything, we'll take that deductible to 0 on the umbrella, and execute a handful of other deliverables, and there you go. You've got a better program just from a couple of small tweaks that are really essentially don't cost you anything to make. So I invite you to continue to follow me, check out Insurance Answers on Facebook, and we'll continue to have these videos. My information is at the bottom. Feel free to call, text, email me, and continue to watch the videos. I hope today was valuable. I'll bring you more. The next episode is going to be on how to win a workers' comp audit.